Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where even you couldn't clearly define what it was? At times you thought you were getting very close to true love, but then suddenly the other person became distant and cold in a way that didn't make sense. You kept asking yourself, does this person truly want to love me, or are they just enjoying vague, unnamed relationships? And this left you confused, doubtful, and even deeply hurt. In reality, this is one of the most common psychological issues faced by those who fall in love with someone who has avoidant tendencies. Do avoidants truly enjoy ambiguous relationships, or behind what seems like indifference are there hidden fears and unhealed wounds? What makes them feel safer keeping a distance rather than fully committing to a deep and clear love? Hello everyone, I'm Jim Rohn. As someone deeply passionate about psychology, especially attachment styles in love, I understand the pain you're going through when falling for an avoidant person. In today's video, I will help you decode this issue precisely and uncover the psychological secrets that lead avoidants to, unintentionally or deliberately, create vague relationships. You'll understand whether they genuinely enjoy that ambiguity or are just protecting themselves from deep wounds you may not even be aware of. Through 6 important insights I'll share, you will no longer feel confused or uncertain, but instead be empowered to make the most informed decision for your emotional future. Don't miss a single detail in this video, as each point will help you explore the deeper psychology of the avoidant person, and more importantly, help you rediscover peace within your own heart. And if you're interested in understanding more about emotional psychology, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can always join me on the journey toward a happier, more fulfilling life. The main reason avoidants behave in such a distant manner stems from a deep fear of getting hurt. In their minds, pain is equivalent to being abandoned or rejected. As children, they often didn't receive the attention and emotional connection needed during their formative years, which led them to lose faith in attachment. Experiencing indifference from others, they began to think that something was wrong with them, that their most basic needs weren't worth meeting. As they grew up, they told themselves, if I open up and seek closeness, I'll only end up feeling distant again and horrible about myself, so it's better not to try. And so they chose to protect themselves by shutting down, avoiding the painful emotions they feared facing. This clearly makes it difficult for their relationships to develop deeply. After all, a strong bond is built on openness and mutual vulnerability. Without that, the relationship remains shallow. True depth comes from sharing together, facing difficulties, overcoming challenges, and valuing the things the other person bravely reveals. For example, if someone tells me, I'm afraid of being abandoned, I can respond by staying in touch when I'm out with friends, sending a message to say I still think about and care for them. That's how I show understanding and respect for the fear they had the courage to express. In short, the fear of getting hurt is the first major reason why avoidants act cold and struggle to open up and build meaningful relationships. The second reason is closely related to the first and stems from what they experienced in the past. For emotionally distant avoidants, forming deep connections seems like a danger that must be avoided at all costs. As children, they longed for closeness with their parents or caregivers, but instead of receiving it, they were met with coldness or abandonment. So they learned to keep everything shallow as a way to protect themselves. They fear facing shame, pain, or even old emotional wounds when placing their trust in someone. Moreover, they want to avoid the feeling of helplessness, the sense that they would fall apart if the relationship ends. Therefore, when pressured to open up or form deeper connections, they feel as though they're being pushed into a dark corner that they know will bring pain. This often happens on a subconscious level, so deep that they themselves may not even realize it. Inside, they may feel conflicted. I really like this person, but getting too close feels like digging my own grave. Why are you forcing me to do something I know will make me suffer? It's not that they deliberately think negatively, but their subconscious is haunted by old memories, making them believe that all attachments will end in failure. They don't see the reality of the present, but remain trapped in the loop of the past, predicting a future filled only with pain. The third reason avoidants easily fall into ambiguous relationships is the way they understand love, as something given in small doses like breadcrumbing. They're not only used to receiving scattered bits of affection from others, but they also unconsciously adopt the same behavior in their own relationships. As children, their caregivers often showed them half-hearted attention, sometimes present, sometimes not. Over time, that became normal in their eyes, a familiar and safe territory. Stepping out of that pattern into a deep and sincere relationship feels like landing on an alien planet, full of risks and uncertainty. Even though logic may tell them that breadcrumb-style relationships are unhealthy, the subconscious, which governs nearly all our thoughts, emotions, and actions, doesn't agree. To the subconscious, which makes up 95–97% of who we are, what's familiar is what helps them survive. It whispers, "This is how we've gotten through everything before. It works, so why change?" The subconscious doesn't care whether you're happy. It only cares about keeping you safe in the way it knows. That's why entering a relationship that demands real commitment leaves them confused, as if they're being forced to do something against their survival instinct. Because of this, vague, undefined relationships become their ideal refuge. There, they don't have to open up too much, face the fear of getting hurt, or shoulder the heavy responsibility of commitment. It's like a game where they know the rules, just drop a few crumbs of affection, enough to keep things floating, but never enough to truly cross the boundary. This might drive outsiders crazy, but for the emotionally distant avoidant, it's the only way they feel in control. They don't mean to hurt anyone, it's just that they're clinging to what their subconscious deems safe to protect themselves from the wounds they fear will return. Another notable point is that emotionally distant avoidants often feel awkward when facing conflict. In any relationship, resolving conflicts is the key to bringing two people closer together. No one is perfect, and no relationship is forever smooth and without turbulence. Challenges and disagreements are opportunities for both to open up, share hidden corners of their souls, and help the other person understand them better. From there, they can work together to overcome things, like a team. For example, one person might say, "Yesterday when you did that, I felt uncomfortable. I want you to be more mindful next time." And the other might respond, "I didn't know that made you upset. I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time." That's how conflict becomes a bridge instead of a wall. But for emotionally distant avoidants, they rarely witness this. Conflict in this context isn't about shouting or getting angry. It can simply be a difference or misunderstanding. Yet they see it as a red alert. They had no role models, don't know how to express emotions or set boundaries without fearing rejection. Growing up without ever seeing conflict resolved peacefully, they easily think, "Oh, if there's a problem, it means it's over. We're not compatible." They're not used to sitting down, having conversations, or showing vulnerability to find solutions. Everything to them feels like an unsolvable equation. Moreover, the idea that being attached to someone means both must take responsibility for each other terrifies them. They ask themselves, "What if I mess up? How do I fix it? I don't know what to do." This feeling of helplessness isn't innate. It's something they learned from past experiences. To avoid that confusion, they choose to push others away, keeping a safe distance as a shield. But that very choice keeps the relationship stagnant, preventing them from growing emotionally. Instead of moving forward, they retreat, and everything just goes in a regretful loop. Another trait of emotionally distant avoidance is that they often feel stuck when it comes to expressing their needs or setting boundaries. Interestingly, they tend to be attracted to generous people who are willing to give in relationships. But if they themselves are unclear about what they want, what they need, and keep silent about the small things inside, they will gradually feel that the relationship can't satisfy them. Meanwhile, they feel pressured to meet the other person's expectations. This imbalance makes them feel as if they've lost control, and that's exactly why they prefer to keep people at a distance as a way to protect themselves. They're good at setting big boundaries like, "I need space, don't come close." But when it comes to everyday little things, they get flustered. For instance, instead of comfortably saying, "I'm tired today, I just want to stay home and watch a movie. Want to come over and relax? We can go out to eat on the weekend." They often stay silent or avoid. They're not used to openly sharing simple desires, those small boundaries that can make a relationship feel lighter. Maybe they fear rejection, or maybe they just don't believe their voice carries enough weight. As a result, when they fail to set clear boundaries, they easily fall into a sense of being trapped. They find themselves dragged into uncomfortable situations, yet don't know how to speak up to get out. That feeling is like being locked in a room where the door is open, but they're too afraid to step out. In fact, the responsibility sometimes lies with them. Speaking up, expressing themselves clearly, is something they need to learn. If not, they'll continue imprisoning themselves in a safe but suffocating circle. This not only exhausts them, but also creates unnecessary tension in the relationship. Just a little courage to speak up could change everything, make it lighter and perhaps much happier. The final reason, but an extremely important one, that causes emotionally distant avoidants to stay stuck in ambiguous relationships is that they don't understand what interdependent living truly means. They think of a relationship as two parallel lines, occasionally crossing paths before quietly drifting apart again, without needing to intertwine too deeply. They can't envision another way of connecting, a delicate balance between being themselves and caring for the other person. Interdependence is not about sacrificing oneself or carrying the other person's emotions entirely. It's like a partnered dance. Each person keeps their own rhythm, tends to their own needs and boundaries, but still pays attention to their dance partner's steps. For instance, if I know you're sensitive to criticism, I'll choose gentler words, offering feedback with compliments so you feel appreciated. That's how both people support each other, sharing hidden corners, fears, and desires without anyone having to lose themselves. When this is achieved, the relationship becomes strong and harmonious. But emotionally distant avoidants don't see that picture. To them, a relationship feels like a trap, where they fear getting caught in a whirlwind of dependency, constantly burdened by someone else's emotions or needs. Just thinking about it suffocates them, as if there's no way out. So they choose to stand on the outside, maintaining distance so they won't be consumed, not realizing that there's a middle ground where they can be both free and connected. They miss the chance to experience real closeness simply because they don't believe it's possible to love and still hold on to themselves. And so they continue drifting in half-hearted relationships, safe but empty. So, we've explored the deeper reasons why emotionally distant avoidants behave the way they do in relationships, from subconscious fears of being hurt, tendencies to avoid deep connection, to the habit of maintaining ambiguous relationships as a safety zone. All of it stems from past experiences and the ways they've learned to protect themselves. They struggle with resolving conflict, expressing needs or boundaries, and especially with understanding the value of interdependence. These difficulties not only keep them at a distance from others, but also unintentionally block them from experiencing deep connection, where love is shared and respected by both sides. Even though their actions may sometimes be confusing or hurtful to those around them, it's important to recognize that this isn't their intention. It's how they cope with wounds that have yet to heal. Hopefully, through this video, you now have a clearer understanding of the psychology behind emotionally distant avoidance, and you might find empathy or a suitable approach if you're in a relationship with one. Understanding is the first step toward change, not just for them, but for ourselves as well, to build more meaningful connections in life. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Your support is a great motivation for me to continue bringing meaningful and helpful content. If you found this video useful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss future videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever met someone emotionally distant in your life? How did you feel about them? Or did you see a part of yourself in what was shared? Leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to read and respond. Every opinion you share is a source of inspiration for me to improve. See you in the next videos, and may you always find joy in your journey of discovering yourself and those around you.